Hmm. Well, let me see here. This is interesting.
I love our technology. That makes everything so much easier, right?
I know, right? Why is this not sharing? Well, okay, so this is certainly a glitch. Maybe what I'll do, Rebecca, is email it to you if you can pull it up.
Yes, let's try that.
Rebecca, this is Kathy. You can also make her a co-host and maybe that will give her better sharing.
Let me do that. Thanks, Kathy. I can do both. Bear with us, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay, I just sent it to you.
Okay.
So I guess let me see. Has hopefully everyone has created a username and password and logged into the Community Foundation's grant portal. If you haven't, that's going to be your first thing. And if you need any help with that, Rebecca or Daniel can, I think, assist with that. But everything, the grants are available through the grant portal, and you can access that through the Community Foundation's website. And it's also, if you haven't spent some time checking out the website, I would encourage you to check it out to see, who some of the funds, some of the donors. It's good to just be aware of folks in the community that are, or in the region that are supporting our community foundation. You never know when you might run into some of those individuals at a meeting or something. So it's always good to be able to thank them for supporting our community. And do you have that, Rebecca?
Has not come through yet.
That's interesting. Um,
Let's see.
So the other thing that I'll just mention, again, while Rebecca's bringing this up, you should get it. It's in my sent box. But
There it is.
the other, you got it?
Yep.
Perfect. Let's see if you can share it.
Is it sharing? Can you see it?
It is. Can you go into slideshow?
Yes, hold on here. I've got the one control bar on top of another control bar here. Move that down. Slideshow. Yes, ma'am.
There you go. And then start from the beginning. From beginning. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, we can always figure it out here.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. If you can go to the next slide, please.
Did it go to the next slide?
No,
Let's try this.
that's weird. It's not going in slideshow. Huh. All right, well, we'll just keep plugging away here. So here's the thing is, we're going to go through the 2024 Community Foundation Spring Grant application. It's for those of you who have applied in the past, it's pretty much consistent with the format that has been used previously. The thing that I'll say is that there are multiple grants available. Make sure you read which grant fits you. That's it. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yes.
Make sure you read each of the grants to see what best fits you. And I do recall that in the past, what the Community Foundation will do is if you select one grant, but you might also fit another one, I think you used to have a box, and then they'll try and fit you in that any other grant applications that might be appropriate for you. So, but don't apply for something like if the grant is funding arts and you don't have anything to do with arts, like don't apply to the arts, because that is specifically designed to fund organizations that are supporting the arts. If you're working with special needs kids maybe, and you're doing an art therapy program or some type of an art program, then that would be a fit. But just make sure you really pay attention to the different grant opportunities and make sure they fit with what you're proposing to do. Read the instructions carefully. There's deadlines and due dates and stuff, so make sure you're aware of that. The other thing that I cannot stress enough, and I've said this every time in the past with presentations and any presentations I do around grants, make sure you go in, and this isn't just for the Community Foundations grant, but it's for your whole organization. If you have not updated your GuideStar, you need to do that ASAP, because it is really important. And for funders who are out there, you can put it on your website, the little seal. So please go in and check your GuideStar profile and make sure it's updated. And you can see here's the little, I think they've changed the look of the seal now, but what we should all be striving for is the platinum. So please make sure that you take some time to take care of that. And then there's also Charity Navigator. There's other ones out there, but GuideStar seems to be, I think GuideStar and Charity Navigator seem to be the most frequently used ones. So the other thing that the Community Foundation requires, as well as other funders, is that you have an active current registration through the Virginia Register of Charitable Organizations, through the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So make sure you go in there and search yourself for that you're active on that. And then the Virginia State Corporation Commission, make sure that that's updated. And for those, all of this stuff can be done online now. And I would really encourage you to keep things updated. We just had to go in and make some changes to our SCC to update board members for our Blue Ridge Habitat. We have a contractor's license, and we had to go in and update that. It was super, super easy. So make sure you take the time to do that. Next. Okay, so tips on writing. Make a cohesive argument or proposal. Keep your plan in mind. Don't be careful with acronyms and jargon and things like that. You might know what CHOTO is, but nobody else who's reviewing it might know what CHOTO is. So anytime you're going to use an acronym, make sure you spell it out first. And don't think of yourself when you're writing. Really think of someone who maybe has no idea about what your program does or what your organization does. So really write it from the perspective of someone who has very little to no information. revise, 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 revise again, look for typos, grammatical errors, styles. I know when I've reviewed proposals in the past, whether it's for a federal agency or for a nonprofit, another funder, it's surprising, but little things like grammatical errors and if you copy and paste and just drop it in and it's all kind of choppy and you've used this section in another grant proposal and you didn't change the content in the one you're applying for now. And it's like, make sure that you really take the time to review and read your proposal through. And I would say, get someone else to review it. Just give it to someone who doesn't know anything about your program and just say, hey, can you read this? Does it make sense to you? Do you understand what we're saying here? And, you know, I should say that this is not only information for the Community Foundations grant, but really for any grant proposals that you're writing is keep these things in mind because, I mean, I can't tell you how many proposals I've read over the years that if somebody would have just taken one last review of it, it would have really made a difference in their ability to get funding. So make sure you take the time to review.
Did attachments come up?
Nope. I'm glad you're having problems with this too, Rebecca. It's not just me.
Yeah, it shows that it advanced.
I thought it was my computer.
Yeah.
It advanced on our end for attachments.
Did it advance on your end?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe it is my end. So let me just okay, so attachments, and again, we'll go through this. And you're going to need a budget, and I'll show you an example of a budget narrative. Again, you don't necessarily need to put a budget narrative together for this grant application, but again, I would encourage you to use every grant application that you submit to use it as an opportunity to do things better than the the last time you entered a proposal or entered information in for an application. I know some of the larger funders and certainly federal funding a lot of times ask for a budget narrative, and so and I think budget narratives are also helpful for the organization. So I'll show you a quick example of a budget narrative. Always have to include your audited financial statements, and they should be on your website as well. And that's one of the things GuideStar will ask about, as well as your 990. So I would say, be as transparent as possible with your financials, not only for the grant, but also just overall for your organization. Make sure you have resumes and bios I would say for your board members, as well as certainly you should have, that for your, all of your key staff, but it's good to have resumes for all of your staff. It's not unusual sometimes where they want all resumes included in a proposal. So I would make sure that you have those and that they're updated. Organization chart. I don't know, when was the last time that folks updated your organization chart? List of board members and their affiliations, any brochures that your organization has, which can really talk about the program that you're applying for. If you have an annual report or a case statement, any media stories, articles, any letters of support or endorsement. I would be careful. I have here be selective. So you don't, if you've had, 10 articles in the newspaper, probably pick the top 2. Don't put all 10 of them in there. Keep in mind that the reviewers, again, whether it's this grant application or another, are probably reviewing, who knows, 20, 30, 50 applications, sometimes more. So you want to be clear, concise, and put the most impactful pieces of information and attachments in there to help tell your story. Did it advance to the next one? What dooms your proposal?
Yes. Julie's nodding yes, so I'm taking that as an advance for everybody.
Okay. So first and foremost, it was late. And I think that I don't know how many applications the Community Foundation received last year, but whether it's the Community Foundation or any other funder out there, the number of applications that they're getting are increasing all the time. And so you want to do everything you can to ensure that you are at least going to get in front of a reviewer. And if your application is late, the end. So be very careful with that. And I would say that know that many people wait to the last minute, and so it's possible that online portals can get bogged down. So I would encourage you to have the deadline to submit your proposal like 3 days before it's due at minimum, so you don't get tangled up in 30 people trying to submit their application within the same time frame. So the day it's due. And I actually experienced that for a federal grant one time, where it was totally bogged down, and it was literally down to the wire. I think it was like 11:38 p.m. or something that it finally went through, and it had to be in before midnight. So make sure that you give yourself a deadline and keep it a couple days before it's due. Make sure you follow the directions. Don't cookie cut. You can copy and paste, but make sure you go through and do that final read and that final edit. Make sure you're really talking about the project, and that it's like I've said, it's clear and concise and it makes sense. Shout out to AFP again. They did an exceptional training back a couple meetings ago about using Chat GPT to help write grants. And I would say that if you all haven't explored Chat GPT, check it out, because I think whether you like AI or not, it is here. And I think from the grant writing standpoint, or writing letters or anything, it's just a phenomenal tool. And so, you can put your program description in Chat GPT and say, is this clear and concise and makes sense? And it'll tell you if it is, and maybe give you some recommendations. So, and there's a lot of other ways you can use Chat GPT, but I would strongly encourage you to check that out. And I would say really make sure that you're incorporating research-based, evidence-based. If there's other success happening out there, incorporate that. If you do incorporate that, make sure you cite the source. Incorporate, if you're looking at innovative approaches or creativity, make sure you put that stuff in there. Make sure the budget's realistic. And I know one of the things that funders will do, and the Community Foundation does this as well as United Way, is they have a question of like, well, if you don't get 100% of the funding, how would your program be different? And so I don't know. I mean, I would almost propose that you incorporate some of that language in your proposal. Like if you don't get 100% of the funding, how would it be different? Well, you would scale back the number of people served, or you've got other applications for other funding to help support and layer funding for that program. So, and if I remember correctly, I think that's one of the questions in the application, is asking about, if you don't get 100%, how would that impact you? And then the other thing that I would say is, and this is, there's a difference between grants and RFPs. And grants are, so the Community Foundation is a grant. They're asking you, what are you going to do to receive this funding? Whereas a request for a proposal is more like a contract. They're saying, we want 50 people served and we want them, we want them to be able to have swim lessons or whatever it might be. So they're basically telling you what they want you to do, and then you're going to give them a proposal for that. So they're two separate things. And I just mentioned this because I think it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, is make sure you understand what you're applying for. Any of you who received ARPA money, it was pretty specific as to what those funds were to be used for, as opposed to you just coming up with whatever you wanted to do. So make sure you pay attention to that, because that could, if they want something and you're proposing something totally different, they're going to be like, they didn't read what we had said. So make sure you follow the directions on that. Next.
Sample of the budget narrative.
Yeah, so this is just a sample of the budget narrative. And again, I think it's helpful for the program to really be able to break down and understand where the funds are going to. I mean, if you say salary, what is that salary? What's the total salary? Who's going to be covered in that? How much time? If you're talking about, equipment, what equipment? If you're talking about travel, who's traveling? So I just find this to be really helpful. And again, if you're applying for other funding sources, a lot of times they require a budget narrative or a budget justification, it's also called as well. So you can go to the next slide. And this is just an example of, it also helps you to kind of break down what the full program or project is going to require, and put dollar amounts associated with that. I think a lot of times we as nonprofits, we might apply for, let's say for Habitat, we might apply for funding for a repair, and that 100% of that repair or 100% of that grant goes to the repair. But that doesn't mean that then that's going to pay for the person that has to manage that project or has to submit the reports, or there's a lot of other things that an organization has to do to ensure that a program or a project is successful. And I think a lot of times we as nonprofits, we forget to kind of break down those details and put a realistic dollar amount associated with what it's going to take. So this is another way to kind of help do that. As far as final thoughts, plan, start early, don't wait, read guidelines, follow the directions, write a persuasive, proposal, and I would say that, if whether it's this grant or any other, it's always an opportunity to learn. Having been in the nonprofit grant world for years, I know there's been more no's than yeses. I'm sure many of us have shared that experience. We should probably have a little support group for that, because it can be an emotional thing when you work so hard to get a grant together and submit it, and then you get a no. But take your time to process all that, but make sure you also take the time to learn from it. I say always reach out and talk to whoever the funder is, the program officer, the executive director, whoever the point of contact is. Have a conversation, and make sure that you have a better sense as to why maybe you didn't get selected that time. And sometimes you have to apply 2 or 3 times before you get the funding. So and then it can be discouraging, but it's, use it as an opportunity to try and do better the next time, and incorporate the suggestions that you get. So the other thing that I would say is, this is a grant application tool. I know many people on this call have probably written lots of grant applications in the past. There's probably some who have written some, or maybe some that have never written any. This is a tool that I created many years ago. I always encourage organizations to start writing your materials now. Put your information together, and you can use this application tool to begin creating a good foundation for future grant applications. Get all this. Here's a checklist of different items that you'll need. Create a folder in your drive and start dumping all this stuff in there, so that when an application
come out there and meet with them, or did you want to come out to the barns, or
you're all ready to go. Everything's there. You don't have to go and dig around and it's in this folder, or who's got this, or there's a paper version or whatever. So make sure, take the time to kind of put this together. The next one is the structure of your proposal. And this is super helpful. Again, take the time, put your organization history together, the organization's mission and goals. If you have a strategic plan, highlight the organization's accomplishments. These are all things you can be doing now, so that you're not rushing when an application or a grant is available for you to apply to. So take this template as a way to kind of respond to these questions. And here's, purpose of the grant. Here's more questions for you to respond to. It allows you the opportunity to be, draft again and edit and get to that clear and concise version. Evaluation is another really big thing that funders will ask about, and it's really important that you come up with kind of an evaluation plan. Who's going to be involved in the evaluation, and simple stuff. I know for nonprofits, it's hard sometimes to there's not always money to do evaluation, but if you're doing community meetings or trainings or whatever, you can always do a pre and post assessment to measure change in behavior or change in knowledge. And so those are just little things that you can do that will inform the work that you're doing, but also help to communicate that what you did really helped people to better understand whatever it is that you're providing training on. So find ways that you can evaluate your program. I know it's hard, but it's really important, especially, and I see it's more and more important for funders that organizations are doing evaluation. And then the last one is attachments, and we already kind of went through this, so I won't spend a huge amount of time on it. But again, you should have a folder, electronic folder somewhere that has all this information in it, so that you can just easily pull it out when you need it for any application. So that's that. Does anybody have any questions or comments, suggestions, tips and tricks that you've learned?
I have a question, Kim.
Yeah.
So when we submit the grant, there's a variety that what's the process on the back end? And maybe this is a Rebecca question. For how does the community foundation decide that, oh, that's going to be great for the chain of checks or Cochrane grant, or like you said, one of the arts part? How is that decision made? Because that would be helpful to know how to structure it, how to write things towards, does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would let Rebecca or Kathy Napier or someone else that's on the review committee maybe to respond to that question.
Kathy, do you mind responding since you've gone through the process before?
Sure, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
So, but the committee looks at all of the applications and knows the criteria for each one of the funds that we have. And we take that and look and see what's the best fit. So if it's a youth program, it'll probably go into Cochrane, because Mr. Cochrane supports all youth. If it's an education for youth, we would probably put it in the Cochrane as well. But we also get funding from Dr. McNichols, his foundation, which is strictly for education. So we take a look at the whole piece of all the applications that we get and try to fit them into the best category. And if we have several that would be youth, but also education, and we don't have any other education, we may move it over to the education fund because there's not any other applications in that funding request. So it's a look at it, look at the whole picture. Last year we got over 50 applications. So we review everyone on the committee reviews every single one of them. And then we meet together to go through them all as well too. And we take everyone's input and try to make the best fit that we can.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I actually have two questions. We run a food pantry that operates underneath the Episcopal Church's tax ID. Would their GuideStar profile be sufficient for us? Would it meet that requirement?
So you fall under the Episcopal Church's, you're not your own separate nonprofit. You
That's
are part of the Episcopal, then it would be the Episcopal Church. Yeah.
Okay, and then our governing body is actually the vestry. Are they okay for our board to fulfill that requirement?
Is the vestry like your trustees? Is it the local body that runs that specific church?
Yes, it's the vestry of the church that we're partnered with.
Yeah, I would probably make a note of that though, so that the reviewers are aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Unless Rebecca or Kathy have other suggestions on that, but
I think that's sound advice, Kim.
yeah.
Thanks.
And just to add to that, make sure that your budget reflects your particular organization, the food bank specifically, not.
Yeah, we do have
Episcopal
separate
Church.
budgets.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
I have a question. This is Nancy from ARA. I typed it in the chat, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask. The grants themselves, are they restricted funds or unrestricted funds?
I mean, I would say that, I mean, again, I think that Rebecca or Kathy can address this, but I mean, they're unrestricted, but I would say they're restricted from the standpoint if you say you're going to do X, Y, and Z, then you got to do X, Y, and Z. But they're not. And, the other thing too is restricted from the standpoint of, I mean, I don't know that I would use the word restricted, but like what Kathy was saying is that Cochrane focuses on youth. So that grant would fund youth programs. And like I said, if you're going to write a proposal for XYZ or your program's XYZ, then you've got to apply it to XYZ and should do evaluation around that. So if you say you're going to, buy a printer so kids can make, summer program flyers or whatever, then you got to buy that printer. You can't go off and say, oh, let's go and take a field trip or something like that. If you do want to change something, I would say for let's say you run into a roadblock or something, like something happens and you're like, oh my gosh, we were planning on doing this and now we can't. Reach out to Rebecca and have that conversation, because I found that, if you have a reasonable request or reason why you can't do something that you were funded to do, you need to have that conversation with them. And there's a possibility based on their that discussion that maybe there can be some flexibility. I don't know. I mean, Kathy, you want to address that?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to follow up with that. Thank you. The grants are project or program specific. It's not to support your general operating budget or anything like that.
Mhm.
So it's got to be specific for a program or a project that you're working on. So in that way, it is restricted to those. If you do receive a grant, you have to submit a report, interim report and a final report, saying how you spent the money, how it was done, what the outcome of your project or program was. So it has to be, again, specific to a project or a program.
Okay, so if there are administrative costs or overhead costs associated with the project, the grant would cover those?
It's if you put it into the budget and clearly delineated what those are, and it's for, again, a specific program or project, yes, the grant could cover that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Other questions? So I was gonna pull in the grant application portal. I don't know if Rebecca, you can do that, but I'll just speak to some of the. Hopefully, again, you have to have access to the portal in order to apply for these. And the portal, I think, is very user friendly. Once you apply it for any grant application, it'll save any grant application to the community foundation. It'll save that in the history, and you'll have that in your portal. So it's a great tool, and there's lots of detailed information about the different funding sources. Grant awards are anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. The deadline that I'll say for the Cochrane, the Paul and Martha Reese, the Boxley Fox, Chain of Checks, Community Future Fund, and other opportunities. The deadline is May 9th. So that means you're going to want to have your application completed by May 5th or 6th. So you can hit that, do one final review and hit submit. And then grant decisions and notifications would be around September, late September. And then there is always an annual community philanthropy day luncheon, thank you luncheon. That'll be in probably August or October this year. It's always a great event to go to, so that we can really recognize all the donors and the great organizations that are in the community. The other thing that I'll say is the community foundation. Make sure you share with the community foundation pictures. If you're awarded, send them pictures of programs you've done, successes, little stories, quotes, letters from people you've served, any of that kind of stuff, because that's a great way for donors to to really celebrate the impact that they've had. And so the community foundation needs that information. So you might get an email from Rebecca or Daniel or Kathy or someone from the community foundation saying, hey, send us your pictures or whatever. Make sure you do that, because by you all doing that, you're really supporting the continual funding from these donors and increasing funding for nonprofits. So it's really important to kind of share those stories. And I think as nonprofits, we sometimes, we're always so busy, like we forget to take the time to share the stories that are making such a difference. So.
Any other comments or questions?
There is one thing that I would like to stress, and Kim mentioned it earlier. These grants are typically $1,000 to $3,000, maybe $5,000. So don't apply for a $50,000 grant, because we don't have that kind of money. So make sure it's at the right scale.
Yeah, and again, I would say, the portal is super user friendly. But if you have any questions or issues or concern, Rebecca and I think Daniel you forgot your password or whatever, there's,
Mhm.
there's support and help there to kind of, just don't wait to the last minute. That won't be good.
Absolutely. Please don't hesitate to contact us here at the office. And yeah, I was feeling bad for all those people on tax day when H&R Block system just completely failed. And so no, yeah. So Ken, that's exactly it. Don't wait till the last minute, get them in. And then we look forward to reviewing them and seeing what we can do. Thank you so much if nobody has any other comments or questions, I think it might be time to wrap up. Any last words of wisdom from anybody or any last thoughts?
I would just say, everybody put your best foot forward. I know the review committee has an extremely difficult time in trying to spread as much of the funding out to as many organizations as possible. It's always a huge challenge, and I know that we all wish that everyone could get funded, but definitely put your best foot forward. I think every year it gets more and more competitive. So do the best job you can. I'm certainly happy to, if anybody has any questions or if there's anything I can do, I'm happy to help. And good luck to you all.
And Kim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. It's very helpful, and we appreciate all your support as well too.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
There's a question, I think, in the chat about the deadline. It's May 9th. Is that right, Rebecca?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Julie, do you want, if it's okay, Rebecca or Kathy, Julie can just give a quick AFP shout out for folks that are interested. Who do they contact, or what's the best way to get connected?
Sure. So thanks, Kim, for the shout out. So AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals, Virginia Tri-State Chapter, we meet the second Tuesday of the month at the George Washington for breakfast. We're just a group of fundraisers and executive directors who, in the nonprofit community, Winchester, Frederick, Clark. We also have about half the members are from the Eastern Panhandle. So we have a presentation every month from a professional. Just last week, June House from June House Grant Services came in. She's a grant consultant and writes grants and has raised, I don't know how many millions of dollars, went through how do you do prospecting. And this was really for foundation grants. And so that's really helpful, even for those of us who have been doing it a while. We have another great national level person coming in May, which I can send out to Rebecca, and Rebecca, you can spread that around. That's talking about specifically donor behaviors and how to, which will help you raise money. So not just grants, but individual donors and things like that. I can put in the chat I'm probably the easiest person to talk to. I can do the group. I put my email here, and then you can reach out, and I can talk to you about it more. There's the national organization has a fee. We have a small fee, and then you pay for breakfast. If you'd like to come to the May meeting, we're happy to do that. All you have to do is cover the cost of breakfast. And like I said, I'll send information to Rebecca and she can send it to the group. It's when I started at Big Brothers Big Sisters in 2008, I knew nothing other than how to do events, and everything I learned about the specifics of fundraising at a high level came from my AFP experience. And you get to pick brains of really experienced people like Jenny Grooves from Winchester Medical Center and different people. So it's a great opportunity, and you network, and you can find solutions to some of the challenges that we all face. So like when you want to cry because you didn't get a grant. Which happens, as Kim said, no's are part of the deal. So anyway, thanks for the time to do that. I appreciate your Kim the shout out, and yeah, we'd love to see more people. So give me a shout if you need anything.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks
Yes,
a lot.
absolutely. I'll share that information out too for the May meeting. So please send it on over. All right. Well, thank you, Kim, so much for your time today. We appreciate it. I think it was really informative, and I certainly got a lot out of it. And I thank you to everyone who attended. Again, please don't ever hesitate to contact the Community Foundation office, 540-869 6776. Always afraid I'm going to say that backwards. And I just thank everybody for being on. Have a great afternoon. And thank you, Kim.
Thanks, everyone.
That's it.